Hi everyone. Thank you for coming to my channel. This is my first walkthrough, so if you can allow me some grace with some mistakes and stuttering and I'd appreciate it. So this is a walkthrough of my new deck, Terra de Napoleon. I flipped through it and doing a first walkthrough, so I am. This isn't my first time looking at it, but so I haven't researched the things that I didn't know. So there will be some things where I'm like, I don't know what this is. So, but someone out there might know, and if you do, please leave a comment below. Okay, so it came in a sleeve. So if you see here, it comes like this, and then there's like a cardboard wrap that went with it. Let's see, and can you see that? Okay, it says that on the front with an Emperor Napoleon coin on the front. It says that on the side. And yeah, it's blank on the back. So that's the sleeve. And if you see the back, there's bees on it, which is the symbol of the House Bonaparte. So that's why there's bees on it. Let's see. And the cardstock is matte. It's secondhand, so the edges are a little worn, unfortunately. But it's relatively thick and it's easy bend, but I would not riffle shuffle with this. I would be afraid of creases on it. So this is the intro card that comes with it. So it's in the Italian, Terracino Napoleonico, and it's by Osvaldo Menegazzi, and it's produced by Il Meneghello in Milan. So that's that. So let's get started. Okay, so this is Murat, Joachim Murat, and he was a general in Napoleon's army during the Napoleonic Wars. And this makes sense for the Fool because he was very hot-headed and was not a strategic man at all. You depended on him to charge into battle. He had no plan. He just wanted to go. So he was good for, getting the troops to rally and get them worked up. And on the front lines, he would just charge into battle. So that's what he was known for. So this makes perfect sense. And you could see, this is very well drawn. I really like the artwork. I usually don't like cartoony artwork, but for some reason I do like this one. And if you see, there's a cross, a medal, and I believe that's the Medal of Honor. I can't remember the name. It's slipping my mind. But yeah, that's the Fool card. And there is the magician or the juggler. And this is a drummer, and the drummers would sort of work up the, to inspire and get the troops moving and to keep them in step. So, and he's juggling the stick. So, I mean, that makes sense. Let's see. Okay, La Papesse. So this is Queen Louise of Prussia. And when there was a battle between Austria, it was Russia, Prussia, and France. And they decided to sort of piece up parts of Prussia. So Prussia got the short end of the stick in that battle, and it's called the Battle of the Three Emperors. And she went on behalf of the king to beg Napoleon not to take a very essential, economically essential part of Prussia. He was very annoyed with her, he did not like women sort of stepping up into a man's role sometimes. So his ego and sexism would really get in the way. But when the king died, he did say that Queen Louise, losing her, the king lost his best advocate, his best, brain, basically, the best advice that he could. So Napoleon was very complex on his views of women. Some of them were very misogynistic, and other times you're like, well, I mean, that's interesting considering the other things that you've said and done about women. So let's see. And then there is, of course, Josephine Bonaparte. And Josephine was Napoleon's first wife, and he was her second husband. So her first husband was pretty abusive to her. He was physically abusive to her, which Napoleon never was. He worshipped the ground she walked on. But he ended up being guillotined in the French Revolution, and she was imprisoned during the French Revolution, which was an extremely physically and emotionally traumatic experience for her. And they do theorize that she became infertile during that. So that's a problem that continued in their marriage, is that they tried to get pregnant, and she was unable to. She originally only married Napoleon to be taken care of. She did not love him. She was only using him and even cheated on him, which really broke Napoleon's heart. But he, after, going off on her, he completely forgave her. And from that point on, she started to fall madly in love with him, and she never cheated on him again. Napoleon was another story. He eventually started sleeping around a lot. But she seemed to look past that. She loved him so much, and knew that her infertility was, standing in the way of his goals, that she basically, submitted herself and just forgave him for doing those things. All the while him sending her letters about how much he loved her and missed her. So take it for what you will. And there's the emperor himself. There's not much to say. You see the known stance. He would put his hand in his shirt, and that was actually in mimicking of his hero, which was Caesar. So Caesar would put his hand in his cloak, and so that's why Napoleon did it. Okay, La Pop. This is Padre Pio, and he was kidnapped by Napoleon. Napoleon invaded Rome and kidnapped the Pope, and it's Pope Pius in English, and just brought him to France. And eventually the Pope died in France, so he never was able to get back to Rome. And I believe that between him and the next pope, which was Pope Pius the eighth, sorry. So it was, and there was a period where there actually was no pope between him and the next one. Okay, this is Maria Walewska, and she was a mistress of Napoleon, and he was completely enamored with her. So he was basically in love with two women at the same time. He loved Josephine. She was his ear, his confidant, and he wrote to her a lot. But then he started doing the same thing with Maria. He basically had an affair with her and just was, on cloud nine when he was doing that. She was from Poland. So poor Josephine. Now, in my last walkthrough, I was talking aloud as far as like who I thought this was, and I'm pretty sure that this is Caesar. It just makes sense that this would be Caesar, which is Napoleon's hero. Okay, so I didn't know exactly what this was, and Justin Michael, who also has a channel, pointed out that it was actually a Freemason symbol, and I was really confused by that. This is one of those cards that I had to research because I knew he wasn't a member of the Masons, and he even said some disparaging things about it when he was on St. Helens, the island. But all his brothers were Freemasons, and one of his closest confidants, I can't pronounce his name in French, Cambaceres. I'm going to say Cambaceres. So Cambaceres was the person that he trusted to run France domestically when he was away at battle. And it's interesting, he was an openly gay man. And Napoleon didn't care. He completely accepted it. And in fact, in the Napoleonic Code, which he would, basically colonize different areas and then force a Napoleonic Code on them, he would decriminalize homosexuality. So that was one of the things that was nice that he did. But this is a symbol of the Freemasons. And I'll have to research. I'm not sure why this is the Justice card. I'm assuming that the Freemasons had a similar classic liberalism ethos as far as justice. The individual, respect the individual's rights. Napoleon was very much about equal rights before the law. And yeah, I'm assuming that's it, but I would have to research it, or maybe hit Justin up. Maybe he knows. Okay, the Hermit. And these are the French sappers. Sappers were the people that would dig trenches and take down barriers when the troops were moving forward. So like gates and walls and whatnot. They were very big, muscular men. I'm not sure why they're the Hermit. I don't know the ins and outs of how the sappers work. Maybe they worked alone and at night to build those trenches to sort of avoid the eye of whomever was on the other side. That's all I can think of. The Wheel of Fortune, a chasseur à cheval. So obviously it was someone on a horse. So cheval means horse. But I don't know the ins and outs of who did what. A lot of the names basically did the same thing that I can tell. So it's very hard for me to make heads or tails as far as the military, titles and jobs were. So someone else would probably know that better. So if anyone knows the names of these, please, and what they did, please, I welcome you to comment below. So the cuirassiers, Sax, so these were the Saxons. Now, don't quote me on this. I think they originally fought for Austria, but eventually, I don't know if this was through conquest or through alliance, but the Saxons eventually fought for the French. And here is the Hangman, and most people know about the Russian campaign. So Napoleon took his troops into Russia after being betrayed by the Tsar Alexander, and he marched them into Moscow, and then the Russians burned Moscow down. They burned everything to keep Napoleon from basically taking it or gaining any spoils from it. And so eventually, I think he stayed like 10 or 20 days in Moscow. And then he turned around in the middle of winter when the winter was getting at its worst, where it would get like 35 degrees below zero. And Napoleon, being, arrogant as he was, thought that previous campaigns that went into winter areas would be the same as Russia, and it was not. I think 250,000 soldiers and people that were on the campaign died. They actually had to turn to cannibalism to try to survive, and it was one of Napoleon's greatest errors. So yeah. And death, which is a cannon, which makes sense. Temperance, and this is, I don't know how you pronounce the word, but for France, there were women, sometimes they were wives of some of the soldiers, I believe, and they would give the soldiers water, wine, spirits and whatnot. So yeah. The devil. So this is Field Marshal Prince Blucher. That's a German name, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this makes sense because Blucher was involved in the Battle of Leipzig, and that was one of the battles where Napoleon was defeated by Prussia. And don't quote me on this, but I think that was sort of the beginning of Napoleon's downfall, or maybe the Russian campaign was, but he really took a blow at Leipzig. Oh, and then he was also, switched alliance from France to England. And then at Waterloo, he was one of the people in charge of the Prussian army that helped Great Britain at the Battle of Waterloo. And we all know that that's where Napoleon lost. Now, I don't know what this is. I mean, obviously it's the tower, but I don't know what it refers to. Like, I was wondering aloud if it was the Bastille during the French Revolution where Napoleon was there. He did not take part in it. He was an advocate for some of the values and beliefs of those involved in the French Revolution. But he didn't like chaos. He didn't like disorder. And so he did not partake in the bringing down of the Bastille. But I was thinking it might be the siege at Jaffa, which was in Egypt, which was a bloodbath, which actually turned his stomach. It was one of those battles that really haunted him. But the French were at their worst. They behaved extremely immorally. I'll leave it there, but it was pretty terrible. Okay. This is the Royal Order of the Two Sicilies, and it's also Naples. So this is the star card, and I believe it was Joseph Bonaparte that originally created this. I assume it's for soldiers who went on campaign into the Two Sicilies and Naples because France took over Naples. And Joseph Bonaparte was originally, I guess you could call him king of Naples. And eventually Murat was awarded. Joseph was, I can't remember, but he had to go somewhere else. He was awarded something else. And then Murat was then the king of Naples. And I mean, I don't know why. Napoleon was very bad at picking people to rule areas. He seemed to go more on dedication, loyalty than with instead of his usual strategic way of thinking. Like that's one of the areas where it just does not make sense how he chose the people, because a lot of times they were pretty ineffectual. The moon. I assume this is just, some sort of dragoon in the night. Not much to say about that one. Oh, the sun. Campaign of Egypt. So that makes sense because it was blistering hot and they would march through the desert, and they were completely, destroyed by the sun. So this sun card probably has a different meaning than usual, but the sun card is usually happy days, wonderful. And this is just blistering hot, so suffering. There's no little white book that came with this book, came with this deck. And so you're just going to have to read some of these cards intuitively. There's the Judgment card, which is St. Helen. And the second time that Napoleon was exiled was on St. Helen, and that was the last time, and that's where he spent the last years of his life and where he ended up dying. The first time he was exiled at Alba, and eventually he escaped that island, went back to France, and everyone just, well, not everyone, but most people just rallied around him. His troops, who at that point had switched sides, by, necessity, over to King Louis, the brother of his, of the man that was originally taken down by the French Revolution, another Louis. I'm forgetting the numbers. I think Louis XIV was the original king that was brought down in the French Revolution, and then Louis XV was the next one. But then he took back France. But here he was defeated at Waterloo, and he was sent packing, and he died at St. Helens, either from poison. That's one of the hypotheses. The other one is stomach cancer, because he had a lot of stomach pains towards the end of his life, and his father died of a similar condition. I don't know if it was stomach cancer or something else having to do with the digestive tract. And Le Monde, it's the world. Yeah. Napoleon the Great. And the eagle was the symbol of the Napoleonic army, so the Grand Army. But the bee was the symbol of House Bonaparte. And here is the Ace of Cups. Now, I don't include all the pips in this walkthrough because they all basically look the same. They just change the number on them. They have a cup and then a number. So there's really no reason for me to flip through those. But I really love the artwork on here. Let's see. Yeah, like the speckles in the glass, like the bubbles in the glass, the shadow. I used to do art, so those things, catch my attention. I think it's very well done. See, this is how they look. And they all look like this. I don't know what flower this is. I don't know if it's symbolic of something. I'd have to look that up. Let's see, the Page of Cups. And these were the Scottish Highland fighters for Great Britain. the name says it all. They were Scottish fighters who apparently were very amicable, lovely people to to befriend. But on the battlefield, they were warriors. It's probably that Viking blood that just they were just amazing, vicious, um, you know, energetic warriors. So they were known for that. Let's see. Chasseur Cheval de la Garde. I don't know how you pronounce that. So this is the Knight of Cups. I don't know what this refers to. So, and this is the Queen of Cups. It's another of the water women who would give the water and the wine and whatnot. So it makes sense in the cups and temperance. But as you see later, they put them on all the queen cards, which is unfortunate. I'm sure there are plenty of queens that could have gone on those cards. So this is the King of Cups, and this is for Austria. Napoleon beat Austria a number of times. Marengo is one of the famous ones, and I can't remember. Geez, I have the memory of a guppy, let me tell you. But there's another battle that Napoleon, they say it was his greatest battle ever, and strategically, but I don't remember it right now. So yeah. Here is the Ace of Swords, which I think is beautiful. And I'll have to look up pictures because I'm wondering if this is an exact match to one of the swords that the French used. But you see a nude man carrying is that like a thunderbolt? A shield and a thunderbolt, and fighting a three-headed serpent. So I'm wondering if this actually has to do... No, that does not make sense. Maybe, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and that's what that symbolizes. That's my guess. See, and this is how the pips look for the swords. A dragoon for Great Britain. And this is the Page of Swords. And again, I don't know the difference between dragoons and, infantry and whatnot. I think they were part of infantry, but what they did, I do not know. Okay, the Knight of Swords. So, second general for France. And I'm really terrible at dates, so I see that there's dates on here, and I'm sure they align with different battles, but I'm terrible at dates. But it's good to know that this year, 2021, is actually the 200th anniversary of Napoleon's death. I think he died in April or May. See, it's the Queen of Swords, is also a woman giving water and wine. And I think that was a poor choice. obviously these were the women who went to battle. This is what they did. They so many of them died right along with the men, and so it was a big sacrifice. And there were some that were there through all the battles, and so they were an essential part of the battles, and that they helped the troops. But you would think that this would only be on the cups card, not the sword card. Okay. King of Swords, and that's Russia, so that's Tsar Alexander. Tsar Alexander, when after the Battle of the Three Emperors, there was an alliance struck between France and Russia and Prussia, but like I said before, Prussia got the short end of the stick. But they hung out a lot, and Napoleon told Josephine that if he had been a woman, he would have sex with him. He loved him that much. They would sit up for hours and hours, talk about philosophy and theology and literature, and he was just completely enamored with him. Like he had a brain crush on him. They would go, hunting together. But what he did not know is that Alexander was not his friend. While he was doing this to Napoleon and basically making Napoleon fall in love with him and drop his guard, he had every intention of stabbing him in the back and basically, destroy him. And so, yeah, poor Napoleon. Okay, this is the Ace of Wands. And this is the Page of Wands. For Great Britain. So that's a Great Britain soldier. Okay, now one I know, the King of Wands, and see, these are the Mamelukes, and they came from Egypt. They were a warrior class in Egypt that descended from slaves and converts. So they were known for being amazing warriors, and they, a group of them fought on the side of France. So yeah. Another water lady. I'd be interested if they have any information online about the different outfits that the water ladies have on, and whether because they have the years on them, so that might not be impossible to see if there's a reason why they're associated with the different suits. And this is England, so this is Prince George, the King of Wands. And here is the Ace of Coins, which is the same as on the cover. Oop. And here's the Two of Coins. I realized that I didn't have a Two of Wands in there. My apologies. And so it's the victory laurels, which are around Napoleon's head as well. Here is the Page of Coins, another Great British Dragoon. I don't know what this word means. 1813. I don't know the year of Waterloo. Please say below if you know. Only if you don't do it by Googling. That's cheating. That might be Waterloo, because that's kind of getting late. Oh, nope, here's 1814. So that is not Waterloo. Okay, so that's the Knight of Coins. Oh, okay, I'm going to butcher this, but Grenadiers, I can't do R's. The French are at the end of words. But they originally, back in like the 1700s or 1600s were grenade throwers. But these ended up being in the Napoleonic Wars, just frontline men that were very large men. So and another water girl. Maybe they're all dressed the same. I didn't notice. It's interesting they chose to do red, white, and green for France. Yeah, like unless this is in Italy. Maybe it's in Italy, because a lot of people don't know that Napoleon was the king of Italy. And the king of coins. And this is for Prussia. So what Napoleon would do is he would have minted, I don't know if that's the right word, or minted is just for coinage, but they were medals. And so for everything, he would make medals. And he would even make them for his enemies. He respected his enemies. He did not make light of them. And obviously, he would have temper tantrums and say things, but he still on the battlefield told people, don't underestimate them, don't speak about them as if they're below you, because they're not. And that's the end. So that is the Tarot de Napoleon. I hope this is okay. This take. It better be. I'm not filming it again. So that is my first walkthrough. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will be doing another one soon. So bye.